You can have dreams, goals, and objectives, but all of it means nothing if you do not act. Dreams without knowing how to tell and share them will remain just dreams. If you want to achieve anything in life, you have to get up and go for it. Your actions can bring you the finer things in life, but they can take it all away if you do not act correctly. Over the next 20 days, you will be receiving a series of inspirational videos about how storytelling can help you connect and inspire others in order to achieve your heart's desires. People always have a lot to digest in their heads, and information is competing for space and attention. Good storytelling skills can help you create an unforgettable impression compared to plain fact stating. A story that is relevant to the theme or intentions of the one sending the message makes it easier for the listener to recall the message a while after the presentation. With just a single relevant and simple story, one can continue to remember and learn more lessons or messages the storyteller intended for the listener. Life in general is a series of stories from which we draw various views we hold about our being. Each person or group creates their own story as they live, although they may not be in full control of how it is understood and narrated by different individuals. The most important part of it all, however, is what we learn, share, or achieve as we tell or listen to stories. No story is worth telling if the listener or sharer gets nothing of value from it. It becomes nothing more than gossip or empty speech. It's easy to look at someone else's life and have assumptions and stories to tell about them. But behind what we normally see and hear about every individual are untold stories drawn from experiences that have brought the person to their present life. Regardless of how much we spend time looking into other stories, we cannot run away from the fact that we have ours too. Everyone has a story to tell about their own experiences or what others have shared with us. Sometimes we find ourselves talking more about other people's stories because we cannot stand the details of our own stories, or maybe we just admire the next person so much that we think their story is worth sharing. Storytelling is one of the common ways humans have always interacted with each other. It helps us make sense of what happens around us, and also communicate our values and beliefs. Stories help us form connections with others. As we share our stories, the listener gets an understanding of who we really are and what we value, while his or her response helps us understand his or her values too. Choose or come up with a story that is in alignment with your goal. This can be a significant event of the past or fiction. Whatever you choose to go with, make sure that the narrative is something your audience can relate to. Make sure that you also create a title your audience will easily internalize and remember. Stories can help illustrate a point, as it allows the listener to visualize and memorize it, which makes it easier to grasp concepts that may otherwise seem too complicated. It is easier to forget a point when someone mentions it to us, but we are less likely to forget stories, especially if they carried a profound lesson or if we enjoyed them. Talking about your personal experiences brings hope to the hopeless, strengthens the weak, and plays a significant role in helping those who hear it make smart decisions. When you talk about your failures and how you overcame, you give someone a reason to bounce back from each failure. When you talk about some of the bad decisions you made in the past and how you learned from them, you guide someone in the right direction and help them avoid making the same mistakes. When you talk about your experiences with rejection and how you managed to pull through, you help someone realize that there is something good to look forward to even after rejection and that it isn't the end of the world. The main goal of storytelling is connecting with your audience, as well as influencing them to act. You will only achieve that by telling an influential story, one that speaks to their hearts, challenges them to think, raises their curiosity, keeps them asking questions, and compels them to act. This doesn't mean you have to exaggerate. You have to be honest when telling your story, but do it in a way that keeps your listeners interested in what you have to say and excited about taking the necessary steps in making a difference in their own lives. People will connect better with you when you talk about your setbacks, failures, or misfortunes, as well as how you fought and used those unfavorable encounters to turn things around. It is easier for people to remember stories than it is to remember facts because our facts require a lot of brain activity to process and memorize, which can also be complicated, while stories are absorbed entirely without much effort. By remembering just bits and pieces of it, we can easily connect the dots and remember the message. No need to wait until you are at the bottom to search them out. In your profession, one of the ladders to help you get up is found in someone else who went before you. Sure, it is great to do your own thing, invent your systems, and come up with unique ways to advance, but we are a people for a reason. Communities exist for a reason, where you can find out how other people did whatever you want to get into, and then build from there. It is possible to be armed with resources and not be aware of their use. But when you hear how someone else utilized the same and produced greatness, your mind gets opened up. We are the authors of our stories, each one of us daily writing and telling a story to those around who care to observe and listen. The next generation is in our shadows, observing the stories we are telling with our lives. They are listening to our narrations and learning from our perception of the world. As much as the world is evolving, there is a lot that was carried forward from the generation before us. The stories they told before us, they stayed with us and mapped our beliefs, our morals, to make us who we are today. The story you tell matters. A whole new generation depends on it. Our stories should spark curiosity, a hunger to learn, and a wild imagination to dream in the minds of the next generation. Our history told should be one that inspires more in them. Stories are not just told by individuals. As societies and communities, we are ever telling our stories as well. We can tell stories that foster oneness, peace, hope, and all the good things. Whatever is happening today, it will be history told in a few years, and it is up to each one of us to make that history one that influences the next generation in the most positive ways. A discouraging story, be it your own or an account of someone else's experience, has a way of getting one in touch with their core. It allows you to reflect and connect better with yourself. You get a closer look at your life, see the mistakes, what needs to be worked on, and you connect better with your sense of meaning. After hearing a story of something discouraging somebody went through, it becomes easier for you to look at your own life and see all the things to be grateful for. There is an emotional connection that comes after the foretelling of discouraging events, or even us experiencing them. It makes us relate more to other people's problems. We become more empathetic and more helpful to others in the process. Discouraging stories awaken the humanity in us. People mostly love to hear something relatable and close to home. It inspires them to know that they are not alone, that there is someone out there who is also trying hard to fight the good fight. When our stories are much more visceral and personal in approach, they become relatable. Each personal struggle or fight is portrayed in such a way that everyone understands. This provides authenticity to the stories and makes the message sink deeper into the listeners, who will feel that they also can do it. They also can rise and face the world. Talking about your experience adds value to other people, helps them realize that there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. inspires them to move forward, and gives them the courage to pursue their dreams. It helps accelerate growth by making the road to success clearer and more exciting. Your story is the most important thing that someone needs to hear to gather enough strength to work on their vision, grow from failures, find answers, heal, remain hopeful, discover their purpose, and go forward with their decision to advance. Sharing your experience is the most effective way of helping someone discover the right steps to take, give them the courage to go with their gut, and move in the right direction. Sharing past stories is a great way of bringing about certain changes you desire to see in the future. They help bring positive change and influence positive action because great stories don't just focus on problems, mistakes, or failures. They highlight the most important lessons learned, show you common mistakes to avoid, and teach you the best methods of reaching your goals. You need to know how you will tell your story, including the sequence of details or events. Without properly planning this, you run the risk of losing direction as you tell your story and possibly forgetting important aspects of it. It is common to forget your plans once you stand in front of an audience, only to remember when you are done the significant things you'd wanted to mention. If there is a likelihood that you will forget, grab a piece of paper and write down what you think you cannot afford to miss. Keep your story as simple as possible. If your story is meant to aid your presentation, choose the part of the presentation where you will fit it in, and ensure that the joining points connect well to avoid the feeling that the story is unfitting and irrelevant. Different genres appeal to different groups of people. You need to understand your audience, their possible preferences, and how they feel about various social and economic issues to avoid offending them or sounding intensive. Audiences are most likely to remember stories that touch and move them. Ask yourself why your audience should care and find ways to emotionally engage them. Make them feel something and attach themselves to the characters or some parts of the story. How do you want your audience to feel after reading, watching, or listening to your story? Once you have established that, direct your story accordingly. Storytelling in presentations keeps the listener captivated and focused. Presentations often take longer than the average attention span expectancy. In some cases, the information is just too much to digest. It is for this reason that breaks and storytelling is encouraged. Through storytelling, the area of our brains that we use when experiencing events is kept activated. We feel like we are somewhere in the scene and are witnessing the events as they unfold.